Hi. Hi. If you close your eyes, you feel like you're in Benidorm with my accent, you know. Okay. Right, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alistair McGregor. I'm a plastic surgeon from LA, you know. For those of you who actually know me, please be quiet. I help in the weekend from the RSPCA for the pets and everything like that, animals and things. You know, I had a stroke, you know, NHS, fantastic, you know, I wake up in the hospital, you know, and they told me, you're going to be all right. So you lost everything on the left side, but you're going to be all right. You know, pets, you know, I like animals, dogs and things like that, but guys, you know, dog is not the man's best friend. Cat is the man's best friend. Because a cat will never tell the police where you got to start. Any blondes in the house? Oh, okay, so I understand, you know, designer dogs, you know, the mixed races, you know, things like that. But that's fine, but, you know, I blame Walt Disney. I blame him, you know, because he started with the Beauty and the Beast. You know, the mermaid, you know, half tuna, half girl. You know, I mean, how does that work? Did the fisherman did the tuna? Or the tuna did the girl, you know? What was that? You know, hey, tuna, how you doing, baby? Come here. You know, things like that, you know. Sea lion. Really? Sea lion. Come on. The lions in the Havana in Africa, and the seals are here in Willie Bay. They must have been in the zoo or something, you know. The seal in there, hey lion, how you doing? Come over for a tequila or two, you know. And, you know, after a few tequilas, oh, stop it, you really are rude sometimes, you know. They start biting each other, you know, 3 years later, boom, a sea lion. Come on, fine. But the things that I don't understand, it makes no sense. A dragonfly. Really? A dragonfly? I mean, who did who? Did the dragon, did the fly, or I mean, hey, how you doing? Come here, baby. Oh, sorry, Rachel. Are you okay? Is that you? Oh God, she's burned. Oh, the fly did the dragon. I got you now. You're gonna be my bitch now. And there you go, and then the dragonfly come out, you know. But you know, Disney is his fault, you know. You know, I'm just little, you know. It's not that far away, you know. I'm just here, but I'm little. And I told my wife once, you know, I got a bloody nose, you know. She said, everybody in England has got a nose. We're flipping foreigners. Never mind. You know, I told her, you know, I'm not happy. So you must be grumpy then. You know, ladies, 2 inches is very, very important. Very, very important, 2 inches. Because, you know, when you go to Pleasure Beach, you know, and they say 2 inches, no, you cannot go into the ride. Get out of here. You know, so it's very, very important, 2 inches. What were you thinking? I can't believe you're looking at your partner. I said, yeah, 2 inches. You know, you're not allowed to get down to the plane. You know, in the airport, you know, security stop you there. Let me see this. Oh, that is more than 2 inches. You can't go in. You know, try to hold your breath for 30 seconds. Let's see. You know, and then you will understand the poor man. They're telling you, is that it? Yeah. 30 seconds. Well, you know, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. You know, I can't sleep during the night. I can't sleep. But my neighbor is 95 years old, you know, and I was talking to him and he said, oh, I sleep like a straight away. He said, well, how do you do that? I said, well, you know, at night, you know, I play with myself a little bit. So, you still can at 95? He said, no, but I get tired, so I fall asleep. So, this is between you and me, okay? I did try that, and because of obviously my legs, it doesn't really work. I feel like it's somebody else. My wife told me to get in touch with my feminine side, so I went down, I crashed the car, and I came back home, and I did ignorance for the whole day, and for no reason. You know, I love women. I just love women. I think it's the most beautiful creature ever. You know, but these jobs that women cannot do, let's be fair. You know, astronaut, for example, you cannot do that. Astronaut is not a job for women. You know, you imagine you're in the moon and everything. Houston, we got a problem. So what do you mean? Typical men, you know, they have to tell you everything. They have to come down and do the job for you. Traffic, you know, traffic. Do you know why I stop here? Of course you don't. It's typical. Right. That's it. You know, if you don't work, you know, I mean, most of you got my age, you know. I'm 62 years old and I got a 35-year-old body. I think it's still in the freezer. I bet some of you were in Ibiza back in the days. Yeah, don't worry, I won't tell a word. Happy Ibiza. You know, that's it. That's between you and me. Oh. So I bet you were smoking weed when you were younger. You know, weed should be legal. You know, aspirin is legal, but you take 13 of them and that's the last headache you're going to ever have. You know, weed is not, you're happy, you fall asleep and you eat everything in the fridge. Even the cardboard boxes, you know, everything. So, you know, I like, you know, I like food, you know. As you can see, you know, I like food. You know, I work in catering, you know, in restaurants, and people, you know, customers sometimes they tell you some things that you're thinking, really, do I really need to know this? You know, you ask, you know, sir, are you ready to order? Yes, okay. Do you know what your wife having? Say, well, she's been in the trolley for like half an hour. I think she's having a food. Okay, you want some fry with that or no? You know, we always use tongs, you know, when we serve, you know, tongs. And a customer asked me, he said, why don't you deal with the tongs? I said, well, because we don't touch nothing with the hand, everything with the tongs. So he said, what is that piece of string you got in here in your zip? I said, oh, that's for when we go to the toilet. You know, because we do nothing with the hands. We grab with the tongs. And that's it. Never with the hand. The hands are clean. Right. I'm sorry if I upset some of you, the idea is to upset everybody.